Hello there. I think the last time we talked, we were thinking about purpose. What's our purpose? What's the point of life? It's a very good thing to think about and not easy to answer. I like to take an analogy from vitamin C, very common vitamin that we need to eat. It's an essential vitamin for a reason. If we don't eat it, we will die. So it's an important one. What's interesting about it is that we can't create it on our own. We cannot synthesize or create or make our own vitamin C, but we can synthesize other vitamins. K2, I think, if you step into the sun, you can synthesize your own vitamin D, for example. But we can't synthesize our own vitamin C. It's just part of being human. It doesn't matter how old you are, or who you are, or where you were born, your nationality. No human being on earth can do it. In that way, we're all the same. In fact, no human being has ever been able to do it. Your dog can do it, though. Your pet dog, your pet cat. Do you have a fish at home? It's a really good chance your fish can do it. Birds, frogs, pigs, horses, cows, sharks, so many mammals, reptiles, amphibians, fish, birds. Many of Earth's creatures can do it. In fact, it's rare not to be able to synthesize your own vitamin C. In order to do it properly, there's these gene sequences, different steps to synthesize your own vitamin C. You can think of it like a big meal, and like there's like phase 1 where it's like the drinks, and then the salads is phase 2, and then the main course, and then dessert. So you have these different phases to synthesize your own vitamin C, and they all kind of orchestrate together by your genetics in these different sequencing. And in many creatures, it all works properly, but in humans, it doesn't. The last sequence, maybe we can think of it like the dessert part of the meal. That dessert sequence, the gene sequence there, it doesn't function properly. It's known as the GLO, G-L-O sequence. That's an acronym. There's a big name for it. I can provide some papers if you're really interested in it. But that last gene sequencing does not function properly. It's called a pseudogene, which means its original function does not have that function today. So in that way, in human beings, all of the sequences are there, but the last sequence, so all the phases of that big meal, for example, the salads work fine, the main course and the drinks, all of it works fine, except the final stage, the dessert stage. It doesn't work properly. GLO, gene sequence, it's broken. It's a pseudogene. So it used to work. That's what's weird about it. It used to work, but it no longer works. So, in that way, you're broken a little bit, and that's okay, right? That, everybody says nobody's perfect. Well, this is actually some proof. No, you're not perfect. You have problems with your genetic code, for example, and that's, it's fine. So what do we do with that? The fact that it works in many creatures, but it doesn't work in us. If we go back far enough in time, we would find someone in our ancestry where it was functioning properly. But for that creature, it's quite a long time ago. In fact, I can kind of explain it like this. There's other animals on Earth that also cannot synthesize vitamin C. I said it's rare, but there are some, like a fruit bat, for example. Fruit bats cannot synthesize their own vitamin C. Also for them, in that dessert phase, the final gene sequencing, that GLO gene, it's also broken, but it's broken in a different spot. So if you think of a recipe, a gene sequence like a recipe to make that cake, 1 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, like whatever it is, all those little components of the recipe, in the bat gene sequence, some of those recipe steps are missing or broken, and they're different than the ones for humans. In the end, it both doesn't produce the dessert, but it's broken in different places. A guinea pig I know, it's weird, but stick with me. A guinea pig is another example. They cannot synthesize their own vitamin C. The final dessert phase, the GLO phase, is broken, but it's in a different set of recipe steps that it's broken, different than humans. But what is most interesting, every single primate on planet Earth, every monkey, every gorilla, every ape, every chimpanzee, every orangutan, likewise cannot synthesize their own vitamin C. But in their final dessert recipe, the parts that are broken is exactly the same as your parts. What does that mean? It means that we had a common ancestor with all modern primates. I'm not being mythological here. I'm not being mystical or metaphorical. I am trying to give you some very concrete evidence that the DNA inside every cell of your body that makes up you and your personality and some of your behaviors, it's millions of years old. Millions upon millions of years old is your genetic code. And that is amazing, right? It means that the way you are, in public, if you're comfortable in public or not, and are you loud or quiet, and not everything, right? Some things are shaped by our environment. That's called how we were nurtured, but there's definitely a nature side to us, and that nature side is dictated sometimes by our genetics, and our genetics is millions of years in the making. And so be easy on yourself. Sometimes we're really hard on ourselves, but you're tied in many ways to that genetics, and that genetics has a very long history. Now, what does this have to do with our purpose? We need to understand human genetics more, because that human genetics that is common amongst all humans does have an impact on behavior. And so if we can figure out where those things are linked, remember in our first video, I said, we got to understand what it means to be a human, even on the genetic level, because it's tied to our behaviors. And that'll start to unlock some of our purpose, why we're here. So it's really important to study. If you think back to that ancestor, remember our common ancestor with primates, way, way long ago, we're talking 64 million years ago, you didn't even look like a human at all. That creature could not synthesize its own vitamin C genetically. And that immediately impacted its behavior. It had to go and find vitamin C. So my point here is that sometimes genetics and behaviors are linked. And so it's worthwhile figuring it all out. And that'll help us unlock part of our purpose. That's another video. Thanks so much for watching. Next time.